These days, what tends to happen is pretty much everyone that I talk to has some level of self-diagnosed ADHD coming up.
The first treatment for any mental health, for anything, would be, what's your vitamin D level?
Jordan Peterson, what are your views about him?
Well, he's met him.
Met him twice.
Okay.
And you said he's a messiah? Yeah, he's a messianic figure? Do tell.
Yes.
Hello everyone and welcome to today's episode of our podcast. With us today we have a very special guest. We have Eirik from Norway and Andy from Australia. They are students of clinical psychology at SWPS, and they're also a host of a really interesting podcast called Kitchen Table Politics. I'm super happy that you're here, guys. Welcome to the
Thank
show.
you for having us.
Yeah.
So just to start with the first questions. Now, since you guys are studying clinical psychology, I just want to drop out a question. What does that mean for a normal person who has no idea and they just know a little bit about psychology, but like, what's the difference between clinical psychology and just normal psychology?
Well, we work with crazy people. I guess that's...
You work with crazy people.
That's usually my life. The difference is you work with clinical cases in psychology, more than
Clinical cases.
Yeah, like,
Okay.
people that are suffering from mental illness and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so people who are basically on a spectrum?
Well, it includes spectrums, but it includes everything from people that are suffering from depression, for example, or people that actually have ADHD or any number of disorders. So we look at helping them from a psychological perspective.
I do have a question which I put like on the ninth number, but I would like to put it in the front. These days, what tends to happen is pretty much everyone that I talk to has some level of self-diagnosed ADHD coming up. What's the amount of truth in that? Like, are we all on a spectrum when it comes to mental illnesses? The other one, like we probably are, but what do you think? Is ADHD, is it a new trend coming up, or we all are, a little bit neurodivergent somewhere? What's going on?
I think there's a lot of noise in the data, actually, if you want to look at it from that perspective. I think the amount of ADHD in the environment is pretty much the same. It's about 6 to 7%.
Okay.
Hasn't really changed. Earlier it was around 5%, but then they renormed the tests, and so it's around 6-7% of the population.
And
There are more risk factors where you might see more of it, for example. So, for example, there are other things that can increase the chances of you having ADHD. So, for example, if you have the genetic predisposition and your mother smokes and drinks in the first 2 weeks of pregnancy, then the chances of you having ADHD, having a child with ADHD goes up.
first 2
enormously.
weeks.
So you can think about it from this perspective. Most people these days don't plan their pregnancies. So they just, I'm pregnant. And then they're out partying. And so a lot of damage is done. So you are seeing it does appear this way, that there is more out there. The other thing too is the tests are everybody's now sort of looking for it, and the tests are kind of, as soon as you see a child that's a bit restless, you're like, oh, it's ADHD, which is not really the case at all. So that's why you need people like us to test the children to see if they actually have it or not.
And in sciences, whenever we are testing acids or like bases, we do have these litmus tests. Do you have some litmus tests for ADHD?
What do you mean by litmus test?
Litmus test, it's like you take a paper and you dip it into the acid and it changes colors. You can
No,
pH
nothing
and
like
stuff
that.
like that.
No, there is no actual test like that way. No, you have to judge the symptomatology of ADHD from a perspective. So there is no like biological marker. And this has been shown by, for example, in twin studies, for example.
Right.
You often find, for example, that there is volumetric differences in the children with ADHD, but these are on average. The differences are noticeable. They're slightly smaller brain sizes, but when you compare it to their siblings that don't have ADHD, they also have the same abnormalities. The disorder just is not expressed amongst those children. So there is no actual litmus test or any biological markers. Like you can't use, for example, PET scans and look at this brain and say, this one has ADHD and this one doesn't.
Right.
There are, of course, some biological predispositions. So, for example, we do know that children with ADHD have smaller frontal lobes, and it lags in development by about 15%. 10 to 15%, but by the time they're 30, brain maturation is fully up to scale. But also the same is they have the motor section of the brain, the motor cortex, that grows slightly faster than other children. So the euphemism is a speeding car without brakes. So the way to think about it is they have a lot of energy, but no control center. But by the time they're 30, those brain size differences don't exist. There's no difference between an adult with ADHD.
So you're
brain
saying
size.
that in the initial stages, or growing up, you can have ADHD, and by the time you're 30, it could go away potentially.
There is a small sample or a small amount of the population where it does appear to grow. People appear to grow out of it, so to speak. But that doesn't mean the majority do. Most struggle with the disorder, and it is a pernicious disorder. The problem is that actually Russell Barkley, one of the guys who talks a lot about it, he talks about it from this perspective that it sounds whimsical, like that you're a bit forgetful and you're inattentive and a little impulsive, and like what's the problem with that? There's a lot of problems with it. Most children with ADHD have zero friends, and it's got a lot of predictions that come with it. So although it sounds like a whimsical disorder, which is not very serious, it actually is holds a lot of it comes with a lot of baggage.
Right, and when you explore these types of topics, because again, in hard science, and by hard science I mean you can have an empirical proof. Okay, if you cross this line, you have ADHD or you don't. But here you have a lot of gray areas, right? And are there any key markers that if you are too high on this particular attribute of your life, then probably you have ADHD? Or even so, it might be a really controversial opinion that if you, let's say, take Adderall, and Adderall is a stimulant, and if you take it and you feel great, because obviously you are supposed to feel great, your dopamine goes up and all those kind of things.
Well, everybody's performance does better.
Yeah. So exactly. I'm sorry. So but ultimately, how do you put a nail on it? Just because you are taking those and your performance goes up doesn't necessarily mean you
long time ago they used to think that stimulants made most normal people go up and stimulants made ADHD people go down, so they became calmer on that. That appears not to be the case at all. It's a complex disorder. We look at the symptomatology and we basically make judgments based on the severity of the symptoms that go with it.
Okay.
So that's how we come to a diagnosis of ADHD.
I see. Are there a lot of ADHD people studying psychology?
The problem with ADHD is it's actually your chances of doing well actually at studying are very slim. So you can imagine that if you're inattentive and impulsive and unable to sit still and fidgeting all the time, then you're not exactly the best student. And so at a certain point, it will impinge on your life. Right, and so the cost to society is actually quite huge. In fact, so it is rather a profound disorder. Medicine is actually currently the most important step in treating ADHD. So the first step is medicine, and then therapy comes after that in symptom management.
And what do you think? Like, medicine is the more effective solution for this, or going to therapy can probably?
No, actually, therapy before medicine breeds deviancy in the children. So usually they're pretty quick-witted, and so they'll typically figure out what's going on, and then they'll use the things they learn to manipulate others. So, and this is straight from the words of Russell Barkley, who's kind of the preeminent scholar in this area, this field. But he talks about it that medicine must come first before therapy. So,
Okay.
And you can think about it this way: the medicine builds in a pause. It doesn't actually fix the problem. So you can think about it like that: you're still inattentive and impulsive. It just slows you down enough so that you can think before you think and decide to act. So
I see. Interesting. This is really interesting. Which brings me, since we are talking about clinical psychology, one of the most known names in clinical psychology is Mr. Jordan Peterson. What are your views about him?
Well, he's met him.
Met him twice.
Okay. And how
And you said he's a messiah? Yeah, he's a messianic figure? Do
messianic
tell.
Yes,
figure.
yes,
It's
I
like,
was-
he's not even less than that, because for some people he's a big deal. And I want to know your personal opinion, since you have met it. It just gives us even
Yeah.
more tough ground to stand on. What do you think about him?
Well, I can give you a little bit backstory. Like, while I was in the military, I went to the O2 in London to see him and Sam Harris have a debate, and Douglas Murray, he was the mediator. And that was the first time, because I paid platinum tickets. I was super stoked.
Yeah.
An 18-year-old boy. I remember, like, I was also dating this girl at that time. I was like, you have to see, like, I'm meeting with Jordan Peterson. It's like, who the hell is Jordan Peterson? So I've been following him since 2017, like when he was just first publishing his lectures on YouTube, which was very popular at the time. And he also got a lot of attention when he was speaking out on Bill C-16 in Canada. So I've been following him since then, and I remember the same year in 2018, I was in Oslo. He was having a lecture there, or not lecture, but I was on a speaking event, and I remember I was looking for the place where it was going to be held. I was like, where the hell is it? It says here on Google Maps it's here, but it's not here. And then I look across the street, and there's this tall guy, look in a nice suit, looks confused, and like, oh my God, it's Jordan Peterson. Oh my God, it's Jordan Peterson. So of course I was starstruck, right? And and actually me and him, we got to walk like 5 minutes together to the event itself. And of course took pictures and
Good for
everything
you.
again.
Like,
Yeah, thank you.
okay,
So
yeah.
it was amazing, and it's, of course, it was because I was so starstruck. It was also difficult to even speak.
Yeah.
It's like,
Happens.
this is the person, like your idol. This is the person that you've been looking up to for a few years, and been watching so many hours on, and seemingly who has all the answers. Looking back to it now, it's not necessarily the case. Like, it's a little bit more nuanced, right? But the thing that when he came on and got such traction, finally there was someone that was speaking up on the issues that I've been thinking about, that I have opinions about, and seemingly nobody else cares about. But what I think attracts so many people is that he's, well, first and foremost, he's articulate.
Yeah.
He has a deep understanding of history.
Yeah.
He understands psychology and philosophy in such a deep way that it's something very attractive to him. But you also get a sense that he's genuine, like he means well. It's not overtly that he's a narcissistic influencer that just wants likes or anything like that. No, and that very, very often happens when you get famous earlier, right? But he got famous when he was like 50 or something, right?
It's not that old.
And now look at him.
You look fine, man. No, but so like he also had that advantage, right?
You guys are young pups.
He had that advantage that he got famous in an old age, and he's built up a career for decades.
Yeah.
So when he became famous, yes, like people see him as some kind of messiah. Maybe that was something that I was seeing, but I think he's an amazing role model for so many. He's also partially, well, he's a huge reason why I'm studying psychology today. It's also because of him. So no, I think he's also become quite battle-hardened. He's been speaking out on a lot of different issues.
Yeah.
And he's changed quite a lot as well. And he also had a couple of years when he just disappeared because he had some severe reactions on benzodiazepines and had to go to Russia for treatment. And just now, in last couple of maybe three last years, he's now finally on the ball again and out there speaking.
With his
so
all beef keto diet kind of thing.
yeah, he's a hard on carnivore.
Yeah, he's a big proponent of just eating beef and like probably not even rice, but he seems to cure his and his daughter's autoimmune disorder,
Mm-hmm.
which I recommended to a friend of mine, but she was like, "Nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
It's just too much to experiment for Thursdays."
I've been
I'm like,
eating
yeah.
meat for a long time, and it's delicious.
Well, I'm from India.
So you have to eat
Anyway,
rice,
yeah.
is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Eat only meat, rice.
But
Okay.
what do you think about him?
Well, it's okay. It might be a bit controversial, but I do think that his ability to articulate the things in a way that seems really appealing to the younger generations, and which you said that he seems to know all the answers. And I also went through his book 12 Rules of Life, and generally it's a really good one. I mean, I really like this book. But I just sometimes think that some over articulation of something, I mean, ultimately he does make sense. He makes absolute sense. But sometimes there is just a lot of circling around the topic, and then he comes back to it. There is no good, there is no bad about it. It's just what I have observed about him. And there are also a couple of articles and books that I read that when it comes to creating original ideas, there seems to be, I don't know how I can say it without sounding bad, because he's your idol, and we are having this objective discussion
Well,
here.
it's like I'm kind of like exaggerating when I'm saying that he's an idol. Like he's definitely a role model.
Yes,
he
yes.
was my idol when I was younger,
Yeah,
of course. But
yeah.
like it's not really healthy to idolize anyone as well.
Exactly.
Right?
And whenever these types of things happen, I always tend to humanize people, because, well, he got 24 hours in a day, he got 2 eyes, 1 nose, and stuff like that. So, and as a human, he has done pretty well. Obviously, human beings have, downsides, defects and stuff like that. But the only thing is, like, sometimes I do have a problem of just understanding him in a way that, okay, this is the point, and I directly get it. But he's always filled it with so many, what do you call these? Antrandas, there is a word, conundrums and metaphors and everything, which gives him a really appealing personality, because it comes with the really good side of storytelling, and that's what attracts people. And these days, young people, if you just look at the social media, everyone is just they are so horny for these advices. Like, everyone just seeks advice. Everyone is giving advice outside. Financially, you should do this. Physically, you should do this. And there is this become a toxic platform of everyone has a microphone and a phone. And I tend to see them as these vocal minorities overshadowing the people who actually are really great in their field. Like, obviously, Peterson is pretty good. I kind of took a tangent there. But what do you? Yeah, what do you think about these advices and this rise of social media platform with these videos and everything? It could be very much a case of selection bias there, but I would like to know your opinion. My opinion is,
Well, before I address that, I would like to say about Peterson that it's refreshing to hear somebody, like, I think we're starting to see the reason why some people are called professors and others are just not. And I think there's a real distinction there, and it's, from my perspective, I've been, like, my hobby is studying. I love learning. Learning new things, so I study everything. And I've been to a million lectures on a million different things. I have never heard anybody do lectures like him, like present his personality class, or either that or his history of psychology, or I forgot the name of it now. But I've never seen anybody address and go through. Even when I had personality psychology, the lectures we had were far more drier than his. They were really entertaining. They made you kind of stimulant for that. They stimulated in a way that the lectures that I've had at other schools didn't. Another thing too is it's easily digestible, and it's really easy to overstate that. Like, you're an academic, and so it's easy for you to get concepts in such a way, and oftentimes when you're dealing with people that are depressed, or let's just say depressed, just getting out of bed, it can be a big deal.
Yeah, you're right.
Just
You're right.
making food. And so, like, I think people overestimate it as, like, I run a Fortune 500 cook company and blah, 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 like, clean your room.
Start basic, yeah.
But on some fundamental level, at least with the people that I've worked with in the past, this is crucial. Like, you need real simple steps that people can get going, and even though they are simple, there's some sort of deep meaning to it. So I think, for example, his 12 Rules of Life is an amazing book for people who want to just rechange their life, even for people that are struggling with addictions and stuff like this. It would probably be my first book that I would recommend to somebody that's struggling with mental illness in alignment with therapy that we're offering. So I think there is great utility in that. And it differs from, for example, other books where they're like, here's a CBT approach to dealing with addiction. It's like, okay, but it's not fun to read, and it's very theoretical and stuff like that. And his book is very practical orientated, and that is something I have tremendous respect for. Like people that are struggling emotionally with a lot of their issues need practical steps they can deal with. And so I think he's fulfilled a very unique niche that I think is really good.
Yeah, and also when it comes to, he does have this style of storytelling. Like, storytelling is what has captured human beings from since the beginning of dawn. Like, religion is a type of storytelling. That's the reason why we believe in something. It's how you present your story to it. And also, I remember one concept of his, like, sometimes we set up goals that are so big for us, and we don't even try to attempt them because, well, it's just too big. So he's like, don't set up goals that are too big. Just start small, because I'm sure you must have heard about that as well.
Another thing that he's done that's really remarkable too is, and it's like we all talk about, he's so articulate and so clear and stuff like that. It's difficult, as you know, sitting on camera and then somebody goes, go, and then, what do you think about ADHD? And you're like,
Yeah, it is.
Define this.
define it. Like, what's the litmus test? Now I feel like an idiot. Like, what is he talking about? Like, like all these things. It's really difficult to do in a way that's elegant and sophisticated and look charming and all these things. So one of the things I would give him full credit for is he's a true master of public speaking. He comes across as eloquent always.
He has done his 10,000 hours and even more so. Also, exactly. Definitely a lot of hard work, book reading, and he's like a true expert in the subject field.
And think about it this way, like if every lecturer at every university put their lectures out, you would fast see who's really good and who's not. And most of the professors I know wouldn't dare put their lectures out. So just there is a great litmus test for, I mean, he's put years of lectures out, so it's I think it's quite remarkable.
Yeah, I was listening to one of your podcasts, and you were talking about these there recently some ministers in Norway, they were caught for plagiarism. Right. And when it comes to like the for example, finances and stuff like that, there's a little to none things that you could fake to get a decent paper out. I mean, you could always beat around the bush and just can release a paper which kind of is a bit different from what it was previously. But I think there's a lot of gray area, especially in clinical psychology, where people can just give their subjective opinions on things and make it sound like they are backed by something scientific, although they don't have to launch a hypothesis, try and test to prove it. And what do you think, is AI or these chat GPT, is it a glorified plagiarism software, or are people, how is it going to affect your field of study?
So, like, a part of my master thesis, I've been scouring through different ways of implementing AI tools into the whole process of writing a thesis. Both been using ChatGPT and a research search tool called Elicit. Like from those, and I also was using a few others, but those two were the only valid ones as I see it, and they were great to some extent. But what's very dangerous is that if you rely on it too much, like how much of your own thinking are you actually applying into the writing itself? Like, is it really your own ideas? Like, how can you check the validity of this? Like, or is it just rubbish?
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that AI tools, they are developing so rapidly that it's pretty both terrifying and pretty interesting as well. Like I think it was yesterday, OpenAI, they released ChatGPT O or something.
Yeah, ChatGPT 3, I guess, and then 3.5, and now it's in the beginning.
Like they released a new product yesterday that's called O or something, and what it is that it's a ChatGPT, but that you can talk to,
Okay.
and that will respond to you with a voice that sounds more or less like a human, and you can hear the intonation and everything.
Yeah.
Like it's really
almost
beautiful made. And the thing is also, they were having two phones, and they were like, okay, so you are cooperating with this one, and this one has enabled the camera, so it can actually see what's happening in the physical world, and then this one is describing it to this one. It's really remarkable, and then they've also changing the scene quite a bit as well, and they managed to catch it up. It's still not there, but like it's just been released, so
Exactly.
so it's quite interesting. What we have been talking a little bit about this when it comes to AI and its implementation into the mental health field. Like you see a few AI products, for example, something called Character.ai, which kind of act like your free online therapists. I tried it. It's surprisingly good. The thing is that and they also have, like, for example, I chose, they have a flora of different characters that you can choose. I chose an Australian guy. That's reminded me of Andy. It sounds pretty fun.
That's true. I do like to tell him what his problems are.
Yeah, exactly. and it went pretty fine. Like it can use simple CBT techniques and so on, and it has some basic understanding of it. You can also ask character AI about why did you say this and this and that, and it will give you a good reason for it. But it's things like, how do you use these tools when it comes to the extreme cases? When you have, for example, an inpatient clinic and you're having a person who's borderline and just smashes everything, like how do you use that? So what we have been, like, our conclusion right now is that you can use it as a simple prevention for the patients that just require simple techniques to get on with their life. Yeah,
okay.
So it's not for the extreme cases, but how it will be in the future, it will be quite interesting to see.
Yeah.
When it comes to the academia, and I'm not. The thing is also, it also has about the security of the whole thing, right? If you're putting the data into the AI companies, will countries be comfortable with that? Like, if you're a patient, for example, and you're in a clinic now because you have a manic episode, will you be comfortable
sharing those data
and
some
maybe that can
companies
influence your future career somehow, or if you want a political position, for example, that's not good, right?
Yeah, there are definitely those concerns. And also when it just comes to publishing any academic article, using AI is a really slippery slope. I mean, you could just simply fall into this trap of, since the AI is doing this work, your brain doesn't want to do that work because, well, all of the creativity which you would have, come across when you were physically writing those papers, I think your original ideas would be much more presented in that way. But if you're just using AI to do things for you, and there is this natural inclination of our brains to just be comfortable and not go through the hard work. And so in that case, there might be some problems. There will be a lot of people faking their expertise, not just in psychology, everywhere.
So like when it comes to writing the thesis, for example, right? Like, yes, we want the path of least resistance. So if we're just utilizing the AI tools to write our damn thesis, we don't do our own thinking.
Yeah.
We shouldn't go through a university program. Yeah. Just simply relying on that. And I know for a fact that there are a lot of people using these tools to get in the assignments and so on. So it will be crucial for lecturers and so on to have like, you also have the AI detection software as well. So like, you have to do that. But one higher level thing that that was Andy's idea actually is that one requirement when it comes to the thesis is that you have to publish it.
Yeah.
Every master thesis should be published because it.
Well, that's what I think. Actually, if I can just add in a few cents, I would say that would be the way you need to check is yeah. If you write something, you have to publish it, and so that's what happened in Norway, where we started, where these people suddenly were like, oh, I wonder what they wrote, and then you just fed in the machine. It's like, this is all plagiarized.
Yeah.
And back then you could literally copy paste things, and unless you had a professor who had read exactly that text and was very familiar, you wouldn't get caught. Now it's easy to catch people. But I think the same will hold true. Like if you plagiarize text or use AI, we should be able to check your thesis and see how much of this is original text and how much has been altered. I also think that we're going to have more of a situation, like especially in the future that we have for medicine, where you have to turn up 1 hour, go, bang, here's your yearly test to see that you are sharp and on tact and on point about everything.
You're right.
You should know the latest procedures for psychology. You should know the latest definitions and the latest terms and what's going on and best practices, so to speak. So I think, from my mind, I think even though you've got your master's thesis and you publish your papers, I think we're going to have more testing, first-person testing, where you just have to come and do your yearly exam or whatever.
I think this should, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think this is a really good idea, especially if you start from the fields which have really big externalities. For example, medicine, because real life people, people's lives are kind of depending on it. So if you're trying to fake your expertise in medicine, it's not going to end up, for a lot of people, not just you, in the long run. And so, this yearly test could be one of those things. And it's actually a really good idea to, if you really wrote that thesis, you shouldn't be afraid to publish it.
No, exactly. And then
otherwise, what's the point?
You'll have a good litmus test. And also, too, there is ways around it. Like, for example, you could be, say, for example, you start at a university, you could be asked to come in, write some text, and then they'll take that as a copy and apply that to the text you've written. So, like, you can see, like, for example, in the handwritten stuff, I use the same formulaic way of writing, whether it's there. It's not as clean and it's not as polished, but it's me. Like, I have my
real
sentence structures. Like, I always have an opening sentence, and then I always have a comparative sentence. I always like, unlike this therapy, for example. And I follow this formula always when I'm writing. And so you'll be able to compare what I've written to that other stuff, and that will also give you a mark. So I'm all for transparency. I think we should publish our master's thesis. I don't think they should be locked in a vault. I think they should be there for everybody to read. Plus, it's knowledge too.
Yeah.
Like and also, if you produce rubbish, it should be equally there to read. Like, I think we should know what you've been able to get away with.
Exactly. At least that. That's right. And since we are talking about education, for so many industries, so let's take manufacturing, merchandising, servicing industries, anything, health and beauty. A lot has changed in the last 100 years, 100 or 200 years. But when it comes to education, me being a teacher myself, it really hasn't changed as much. We definitely adopted the newer tools, the presentations, and but in retrospect, it's pretty much the same for last 200 years. People are sitting in the classroom, and the teacher is teaching it. And I would like to know your perspective on: is it okay? Is it adequate? Or should there be any change? And if there should be, what do you think can be done to improve it? Because as far as I know, AI is going to replace a lot of jobs and and obviously it will cause unemployment, and that has a really varied number of solutions like universal basic income, and we'll dive deeper into that.
So like there's this one school that I've been following called Acton Academy. Are you familiar with it?
I'm not.
Yeah. So like JP, my hero, he's
Is it JP now?
JP, yeah. We're basically friends. So
He is.
JP, other JP Morgan.
he calls me E. So
Erik's got a bit of a crush on something. He's like,
Yeah.
I spoke to Yalom, and he's like, oh, he's handsome.
yeah. So I need to mention that as well. I need to just name drop the people that I know. Yeah, like there's this famous psychiatrist that I've been reading called Ibn Yalom, and we were running this psychology club at the university, and I wanted Yalom to be one of the speakers.
Yeah.
And he answered. I was like, oh my god.
Send him an email. It's a big moment. I'm dying. Sorry, but he responded.
And yeah,
Oh my God.
exactly. Like, so he responded, and he was basically saying that it is really nice, but I'm retired. I'm 93 years old. I'm I'm not the.
I think these nurses are stealing my socks.
No, but like he wrote a really nice email, and his soon as birthday, he actually has birthday 2 days after me, so I will write him a birthday congratulations as well. Anyways, so one of the guests of the Jordan Peterson podcast was the founder of Acton Academy, and their approach to education is that it's very much like a student mentor mentality, so that, like, imagine you have a school and it starts like when people are like, I don't know, like 7 years old, right? They learn how to read and write and everything, but they get a lot of time to focus on the things that they're interested in. That's one thing, right? The other thing is that they are encouraged to reach out to local businesses that they are interested in, like within their field of interest. So imagine if Daniel, for example, right, the camera guy here, since he's really interested in filmmaking, he can reach out to a local studio, a film studio, but he also needs to really dig into the industry. He needs to write a good email, right? So when he's done some investigation into this field, he writes an email to the local studio. He asks for an internship, for example, or work part-time after the school. Then he can do that, and he can see if he actually wants to be a filmmaker. I think that's because one of the most tragic things about education is that we go through 12, 13 years of education, we go to university, we want to be a doctor, or we want to be an actress or whatever, and we hate it. We wasted 5 years of our life studying something that we don't even like, or that we see that we're not built to do this, right? We need like, as human beings, we need something to do. We need a purpose. We need work, right? We need to build something. But if you test that very early on, then you can go through a lot of different fields. You can check if filmmaking is actually something that you want to do, right? And even if it's not something that you want to do, at least you have built a skill. So that has been built into into Acton's program. The other thing is also that the students that's older than you, they will help you, like they will tutor you in different subjects that they're talking on. So you also, and you were also mentioning earlier that what's great about teaching is that you can also, it's kind of challenging your own assumptions and everything, right? Because you kind of have to revisit your own ideas. Figure out, okay, how can I explain this? Does it even make sense, right? When I'm telling you that, do I even believe it, right? So they built that into the program as well. So fundamentally, this Acton Academy, it encourages you to be an entrepreneur, while the regular state schools encouraging you to be compliant and to memorize information for a test. That's it. You don't need to use the information that you learn for the test. It's just to get you through the grades, and that's tragic.
It is, definitely, when it comes to the time wasted. And in those wasted years, you could have gained like 7 or 8 years of expertise within your field. So not only we are going to have better engineers, but better engineers, doctors, painters, artists, musicians, because they have more time to practice, and it will just push the society to a newer level. But what you're saying completely resonates with me, because until I had my education from India, and in Indian education system, it's rough, to put it simply. You have until Saturday we had classes. We don't have like 2 days weekend. We just have Sunday. Take it or leave it. And you have mathematics, you have sciences, and a couple other subjects. Not that I'm complaining, but again, there could be a really radical shift in the way that they are taught. But until 12th standard, I didn't even know if I liked sciences. I just chose it because it will open a lot more doors for me. And now today, I have nothing to do with physics, chemistry, biology. If they would have been taught in a way that I'm learning from, let's say, Dr. Andrew Huberman or Jordan Peterson or all these, it would have been way more interesting to me, like what's really applied. I kind of get why the schools are trying to teach us all the basics of geography, history, and all that. But it definitely, like 3 days, maybe you have these classes, and the next 3 days, maybe you do what you want to do. Kind of, this could be a hybrid system as well.
The problem is actually like for me, education is something very specific. It's behavioral change, right?
Yeah.
So you don't actually know anything until it's affected your behavior. But one of the problems with shows like Andrew Huberman and stuff like this is that you get a lot of people now who've seen a couple of episodes, and that doesn't make you a biologist.
Yeah.
And the problem is that there's a lot of holes in that knowledge. Like one of the things you get from going to an institution is a curriculum, and then that curriculum, it's set out like, okay, you got to learn this structure of information that's involved. Is, you know, you're going to learn whether it's biology or whatever. You're going to go through everything and sort of get the whole package, so to speak. And if you're just randomly plucking shows out of it, you can feel like you have that.
Yeah.
But, you know, if somebody asks you about eukaryotic cells, for example, you're like, well, you know, like dopamine. You've learned dopamine, but what are you talking about?
What's prokaryotic?
You know what I mean? Like
cell,
there's a whole panacea of information that is missing. And so one of the things that schools do give is that
proper
structure of knowledge. So if it's done well, it's quite... I think it's quite remarkable.
That's absolutely true, and I really like the perspective of Eirik and how you put it. But I would just like to extend a bit, and then right after my school, I also did my bachelor's in India, and then I started gaining interest in economics, and turns out, okay, this is the field I've chosen. And then there's also this sunk cost fallacy, because you have to come too far to just give it all and jump right to the next branch. But I always wanted to be like a painter and an artist. Yeah.
I heard from a common friend, Gurav, he said that in India, you first become an engineer, and then you can figure out what you want.
Yes, and then you do something else. And if you're not an engineer or a doctor, well, you have failed your parents terribly. Yeah. Andy, what would you like to add in this education? How could it be improved?
No, I think that's a good question. How can it be improved?
Because you mentioned that education is only valid if it leads to behavioral change.
Yeah, it's like we talked about so much in this regard, like AI, and all these other tools. I think you have to embody the information you learn. It has to be a part of you. That's a big part of it. So one of the things that, like, sort of backtracking a bit to our conversation with AI, but one of the problems I find with education and AI is if you use, for example, ChatGPT to write your essays, it's thinking in a way that you don't think.
Yeah.
And so it's very difficult for you to organize your thoughts around that.
Yeah.
So even if you try to rewrite it in your own way, it writes in a way that's not you.
Yeah, definitely.
And so it's very hard for me to actually use that. And also too, when you're reading somebody else that is using it, it's so blatantly obvious. Like, even if you tell it to write like a regular person and do all these hiccups, there's something really not right about it. I don't know exactly what that is. And it's not to say it won't be
I
there,
totally get it.
But
the way it writes and the way it just presents you stuff, it doesn't matter what you give it, it has this something uncanny about it.
That's just, peculiar. And also, like, I can tell, for example, when I'm talking to another person or another, if they know what they're talking about, like, immediately. And then I can also, the way Eirik talks to me, and when I read his writing, it's sort of the same. Like, it's a cleaner version, but it's sort of the same thing. And suddenly you get this text that's like from a, it just doesn't line up with the person.
Exactly.
And I think that will actually hurt people's education. It will prevent them from going forward. And I see this too, like when we have quizzes and tests, because everybody's got their computer open. You can see the people that have ChatGPT running all the time, and they're sort of like scanning the knowledge, but it's not in their body.
Exactly. It's hurting them more than it's benefiting them. In a way.
It's like trying to remember a set of things, and I I can tell you, like when you're dealing with people that are ill, you need to know.
Yeah.
It has to be in you. You can't be
Exactly.
like, well, let me get my book or let me see what ChatGPT says. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you need to know what's going on. Like okay, this is what's happening with this person right now, and it's okay. These things happen. Like you know, like you need to be in the moment with them. You can't be like doubting that. And so I
Yeah.
think a lot of how could education be improved? I would say we need to force people or need to find a way that they have to actualize the knowledge themselves in a way that doesn't involve chat GPT or any of these things.
Right. And whenever you're using ChatGPT, it's basically you're borrowing intelligence from a software, which again, when it comes to path of least resistance, your brain doesn't want to work because it has the, the food is being chewed for you. So why would you put some extra effort to go that far to, make it even better? And sometimes, even as a teacher, I definitely use ChatGPT to summarize really, really long text, but I do read it. And then sometimes I think like it has given me so generic points that it just, I really have to write the stuff myself whenever, I'm kind of making my presentations and there's really long articles or some research studies in those cases. One more thing that I could add from my side, which could better education, is like I have a strict rule in my classes that you just cannot use phone. And I'm like a really bitter guy when it comes to it.
Yes. You beat them.
Yeah.
I tortured them emotionally.
You have your dungeon in the...
Tell me about your childhood. Your father didn't love
That
you or
would be
something
the
like
thing.
that. Yeah.
If I was a lecturer, I probably wouldn't allow people to use their computers or phones. You
Yeah.
have to be present or just leave.
Exactly.
The thing is, like right now, it's actually throughout our whole program, it's we kind of have like this dips and like highs and lows, like where some lecturers they are putting demands on the students. The students first hate it, but then they kind of learn to love it as well because they see, okay, when we actually have demands, when we actually have to show up to the university, we're actually at the university. We actually have to read the literature that we've been assigned. We actually have to go through these quizzes that we get. If not, we're gonna fail,
Exactly.
and everything is gonna be wasted, right? But the thing is that the lecturers have to have some testicles
Yeah.
to do that as well, right? Because you're gonna get pressure both from students and from other faculty members as well. It's like, why are you being so harsh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
It
so,
does happen,
so
yeah.
so there is something to that, to being too lenient to the students because you just want to be nice. But no, you have to put demands, and they will be to some degree, like I believe in this kind of tough love as well.
Yeah.
And also, like, my favorite lecturers are the strict ones at the university.
Yeah, because that's the whole point. I mean, if they're using their phones, it take kind of, I guess you guys know more than I do about this concept of, like, our brain takes some time to focus on some things. And there is this book called Deep Work. What it tells you is basically you need at least 17 or 18 minutes of focus in order to be in a zone that, like, let's say you are studying one piece of article and you're 17, 18 minutes in, now you're completely focused, and then you get a message from someone, and that is just beep. And your neurons, which were firing in your brain, the focus goes to a different part of the brain. And so your neurons are not really making those deeper connections. And so that's the reason why scientists used to just lock themselves in a room for like 4 or 5 days to just do these experiments, because some of them knew this principle of the deep work of your brain's ability to make those deeper connections, and your elasticity, brain plasticity kind of depends on how deeply you can focus it. And that's the reason why whenever we are trying to learn something, we have this initial resistance of we are being annoyed, like you're trying to understand a difficult concept. In mathematics, it happens quite a lot. And you're just basically so annoyed and that's your brain's way of making those physical connections with each other. So it's a really essential part. And whenever, they're listening to me and, and their one hand is on Instagram and they're getting bored, it's like the first point is you only retain 20% of what you've learned. And in that 20%, you're also using your Instagram. Definitely, this is full of dopamine and this is not. And so you will naturally be more inclined to watch the phone, and that's the reason why I just never allow them to use the phone. And I get some sort of pushback.
Yeah, of course.
Like they complain to the dean about, like, he's super strict, like as if I care.
Okay.
Like it's.
But if someone in class were actually taking off their phone, like what happened?
I have simple rules. It's like if you have an important call message, you're free to leave whenever you want. You want to play games, go outside, just have fun, come back. Just don't try not to disturb your class. And the whole point is just to train their focus. It's just that's the only goal. And I know in the long run, they will know that it. At least we learned that subject because your point, just showing up there, just sitting there. Because this forced method sometimes help them to retain so many things that I just say in the class. And how do I know that? Because I saw the same examples that I gave in the classroom, not in the textbooks, in their notebooks, because at least they were listening.
Yeah.
And that kind of creates just ability to sit for an hour and focusing on a subject takes some effort. And I just don't want to take that effort away because this device, it's as much as it is a gift for us, it's also
Poison.
it's poison. Turns out, especially with the kids who are growing up on these iPads and stuff. I personally believe that children until age of 16 shouldn't be carrying mobile phones into the school. I didn't. Maybe you guys
Why
did.
stop there? 27, not allowed phone.
In the schools.
40.
In the school.
40. No,
I'm-
but
I'm in.
I couldn't
I'm in.
agree more. Actually, I think like it's important to be there, like in the class, in present. There, I think it's really important. And I think it's it's one of the things that I've found. Like the lectures where you don't have to be there, they're almost ghost towns. And so
Yeah,
there's like
man.
three
Yeah.
people. It sucks for the lecturer who's doing
Exactly.
it, but also too those other people. They're just going through the slides and just. Okay, it's going to be something like this, and I don't think that's right. I think there's something about sitting there, listening to it, and having that information in your head.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like it does something, like if you're listening to an hour and a half every day for 10 weeks.
Right. And Eric, you asked me in the elevator, why do you like teaching? It's like, because I'm passionate about it. The day I stop being passionate about it and then I just have to do the work, I'll stop teaching. It's the thing, because I wouldn't be doing, like, there is a moral concept of it, because my father is also a teacher, my mother is also a teacher. And they told me one thing, like, if you are not passionate about teaching, you wouldn't be doing just bad to yourself, because you'll be living every day, going to the classroom, just reading PPT, just to barely make it out. But you'll be doing a disservice to the students who are kind of seeing you as someone who is going to actually teach them something. And so it's a longer term, moral boundaries that I have, that if I do it, it's also because I was a student not long ago, and I saw that what could be improved, so I tried to implement those things. Far from perfect, but these are the smaller things, which every year kind of puts me in the zone of, actually liking my job, talking with people. And whenever I'm trying to explain a concept to someone else, it just clicks in my head. I'm like, oh, it's that way. And so it's a really good way of learning.
And also, like,
stuff as well.
if you either get burned out or bored, like, you can also take a break.
Take a break, yeah. Take a break, yeah, definitely. And also, I personally kind of believe that you could have more than one passions in life. You're not committed to any job, any title, anything. Because life is beautiful, and whatever the stage comes, you should just like adapt to it. Not too much, being in a reasonable boundaries. So yeah, passions could change, and I'm totally into it.
Life is beautiful. What is beautiful about it?
Everything. Everything. Life is mostly about like
guys are
eliminating, it's just some philosopher said that, we just have to avoid the biggest and the most miserable parts, like avoid the biggest of the
Just
miseries.
repress everything, and everything will be good.
Yeah, life is basically suffering. All we have to do is just avoid the biggest of the suffering, or just get through them, probably.
So that's why you left India.
That's why life is beautiful. That's why life is beautiful. Oh my god. Yeah, and this is good. Leaving India.
India's great.
Leaving India reminds me of Polish immigration policies. Poland, please don't. Please don't send me back. But what do you think about this sort of hypocritical nature of Poland allowing some refugees and not the others?
I don't know anything about the refugee problem here.
I don't know what you're
But
talking about.
every country has those sort of policies. There's some they like, there's some they don't like. I mean, England has got a real issue with refugees right now. So it's I think it's par for the course.
Yeah.
I think like you also just like feel it out in the streets here. Like Poland is the safest country in Europe, I
It
would
is.
say.
Is it?
It is.
Yeah.
And I think
It's really for me. I love it here. It's awesome.
Exactly. And I think just because of this strict immigration policies of Poland, it is the safest place. Because Poland was the only country which gave the most amount of visas in the last 2 years. Legal. Absolutely legal. They have no problem in, any sort of ethnicities or any sort of immigrants coming in as long as you're legal. And that's the reason the crime rate is at absolute zero. There was some tragedy that happened recently with this. There was this girl who was killed and, rape kind of stuff. And unfortunately, it was the girlfriend of my best friend. And that was the only rape case that I ever heard in Poland.
No shit.
Yes. And, because I knew both of them personally. And, it's like, it's not uncommon to hear all these things in like the Western Europe or, US, India, China, wherever. But in Poland.
That happened here in Poland?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, actually, you didn't know. There was this girl called Lisa. And and the craziest part is she was just going out of a bar at like around 11, 12 in center, like in the absolute center of the city. And it happened there.
Here in Warsaw?
Yeah, in Warsaw.
Cool.
There was this guy who was 23, saying that he's suffering from some mental disease, and they kind of found some, dark magic books in his apartment or stuff like that. So he's pretty much in jail right now. Yeah, but this was the only tragedy that I'd really heard that, okay, things like that happened.
How is your friend doing?
Bad. He's doing bad. Like, it's been 2-3 months. And, we talk sometimes. He's like going through these feelings of overwhelming because he was living with her for like 3 years. And now he's just absolutely alone, not only. Plus, he has to process all this trauma because something happened to his girl and she's not here anymore. But, she was in the hospital for like 2-3 days, and there was a really big crowdfunding program for her, which raised like 700,000 zlotys. But again, of no use, so the money was refunded back to everyone. But it was used for the funeral and stuff. Yeah, pretty tragic. And she was from Belarus. And things like that happen, but not on a scale that is pretty concerning. And that's why there was one Polish minister who said that what's the bomb blast in Poland? 0. What's the rape rate in Poland? 0. It's because they have these really, really strict rules. And, for Polish society itself, I think it's pretty... It's good for them, in my opinion. But when you go to France, and you go to these Western countries, Germany taking a lot of immigrants, I'm not an expert to say what's good or bad about having a lot of immigrants or anything. But things seem to be working fine for this country. And in France, you see this. In Sweden, in Norway, you see these bomb blasts, terrorist attacks, radical Islamism, and all these kind of things. Not in Poland, though. There is no trace of it. Yeah, so that's about it. Awesome, guys. Well, just to the point, we are having so many random different topics, and since you are from Norway, let's talk about vitamin D.
Oh yeah, we have a deficiency on that, but actually, like Andy was recommending it to me for the first time like a year ago, and I've been taking supplements ever since, and it definitely does
Feel the change.
Yeah, like I would say so. Like I don't have any any scales that I've been filling in, but Andy could talk about vitamin D. He's actually quite an
Mr. Andy,
read up on the field.
What do you think? What's like how much should we take, and what's the essential vitamin D3, K2 together?
Yeah, actually, vitamin D is probably the most important vitamin, bar none. I can't think of another one that comes even close. Magnesium, but that's an electrolyte. K2 is very important because it deals with the calcium that's been metabolized. So it's sort of essentially vitamin D frees up calcium, and K2 puts it back, as I understand it, into the bones and teeth of the body where it's needed. I recommend 4,000 international units. I'm not a doctor, but to produce or to make vitamin D, you basically need to be fully naked in the sun when it's 45 degrees or higher in the sky for at least an hour, and then you maybe, I don't know, depending on your skin color, maybe make 10,000 units if you're white.
I see.
International units. Nobody is doing that, so everybody's deficient in it. So I think everybody should be on a bare minimum of 4,000. Even children tolerate. I mean, they've got, according to the Endocrine Society and the Pediatric Society of America, the toddlers tolerate 2,500 units, international units of vitamin D. So it's quite safe, and your body can also get rid of it. It's not like other fat-soluble vitamins that are actually toxic at high doses. Vitamin D is quite safe, and even to run into hypercalcemia and stuff like that, you need to take a ridiculous amount of vitamin D. So it's a really safe vitamin, especially when taken in conjunction with K2. And so
K2 is kind of metabolizing and putting the calcium where it should be.
K2 is kind of a strange one, especially here in Poland, because you do eat a lot of fermented foods. So, like, if you're eating sauerkraut every day, then you don't need it. So, depending on the type of diet that you follow here. But I know a lot of the Polish people eat sauerkraut and kimchi and things like this. So, if you're eating that, then you're getting K2. But it's really good, and it's associated with very good health, cardiovascular health, and so forth. So, again, I'm not a physician, but for my mind, like, vitamin D affects so many aspects of the body, like not just your metabolism, but also, I mean, they found vitamin D receptors in the brain. Your body craves vitamin D, and so even as going forward as a psychologist, the first thing I would like, the first treatment for any mental health, for anything, would be, what's your vitamin D level? And then start taking vitamin D immediately. It takes 3 weeks to work. So
is it an adaptogen or like
adaptogen?
Yeah, I mean, like, you must have heard about this supplement called ashwagandha.
Yeah, but I don't know much about it.
You gotta take it for like a couple of days to really see the effect. It's like you take it today and it's not going to show you the effects tomorrow. So it's like,
sort of.
Yeah.
Vitamin D is actually has to go through an enzymatic process. Whether you make it in the skin or whether you take it in the pill, it will ultimately end up in the liver.
Right.
And then it undergoes a process. It takes about 10 days in the liver, 2 weeks. And then it goes to the kidneys, and then it gets activated. And at that point, you have active vitamin D, and it's got a half-life of 15 hours, usually around there. And so you can think about it that if you start taking, a lot of people take it for a week and say nothing happens. And it's like, well, it's going to take 15 days at a minimum, or 3 weeks before you're starting to see any noticeable effects. And if you're overweight or obese, your fat cells will store vitamin D before it will absorb vitamin D long before it even gets there. And there's also a really important aspect of this, and this sort of ties into a guy's work, Bruce Ames. He has this theory called triage theory, where the body will use vitamin D where it's most necessary. So your immune system, in other words, the body doesn't care if you're moody if your immune system is short on vitamin D, so it will use it for that first before it actually upregulates to other things.
I see. So this the problem of hypercalcemia, you know, I heard somewhere, I mean, the source was genuine, but there was this lady who was taking like 50,000 ISU of this vitamin D, but she was not taking K2. And so could that kind of, cause these problems in the bones?
Again, I'm not a physician, but like the studies where hypercalcemia became apparent was like people were taking 40,000 units every day for like a year.
Yeah,
I think the soonest it occurred was at 12 weeks. A bit fuzzy on the dates since, but I think so. If you think about the amounts, and then there's a lot of studies, like the studies what I'm looking at is vitamin D and its association with ADHD symptomatology, and I know that a lot of places were giving shots of like 300,000 units, international units, one shot, no K2, bam,
cracked up,
and that's not enough to give you hypercalcemia. So unless you have some other metabolic disorder that's driving that, but it's so rare, and to take that amount, like even if you were to take 10,000 units every day, I doubt that that's enough to give you hypercalcemia. And then as I understand it, K2 down regulates the chances of that, so you have a lot of options there. So yeah, it's not an issue that I would be concerned about. That said, you should always take a blood test to check it, and I think that's important to see where it should be, and at an optimal range, you should be somewhere between 50 to 75 nanomoles of
Okay.
cholic alcohol, and so it's yeah.
And so the first way to improve your mental health is to cover up the deficiency of vitamin D.
From my mind, I think that would be the, I think what you're going to find is that it's a force multiplier. So, for example, if you're depressed, that's one thing. But if you're depressed and you're low on vitamin D, you're going to have a much severer thing. So just from that, I don't think lack of vitamin D I don't think there's a causal relationship, but it just will exacerbate the symptoms that you're feeling. So in the same way that it appears to be in the studies with ADHD, if you've got ADHD, you have ADHD, but if you have ADHD and are deficient in vitamin D, it appears your symptomatology is more severe. And so one of the ways that you can downregulate your symptomatology of ADHD, or the effects like the inattention and impulsivity, is by increasing your vitamin D. That doesn't mean ADHD will go away, that you're curing it, but you're lessening the severity of the symptoms that's commonly associated with.
I see.
So.
I see. Associated to that, since you guys are studying psychology, there's something about grief whenever someone dies, or whenever, even if you're going through a breakup. Do you guys know any method, or the most effective method? There's none. Everyone has to deal with their subjective griefs, but is there something that you can physically do, or take some practical steps in overcoming grief? And how does grief, what is the concept of grief in our brain? Like, how does it work? What part of the brain is...
So, like, a few months ago, me and Andy, we had an episode on grief as a part of our weekly rants. And both me and Andy lost someone recently. Like each of us lost someone that are dear to our lives. And grief is a weird thing, because we deal with it very differently, and some don't really deal with it. They kind of just repress it as well. But I can speak from my experience. I lost a good friend to a drowning accident last year.
I have.
And it was quite weird, because I got a phone from a good friend, or a mutual friend, and he said that hey, our friend, he's been in a drowning accident. He's now in an artificial coma. It does not look any good, and we just have to wait and see. And it was obvious that your friend is gonna die, but a part of me didn't really want to accept it either, right? So it took quite a few weeks actually to understand what had actually taken place. So and I went to the funeral, and I went back to Norway and to the funeral, and I was surrounded by all the people in our friend group, and it was something really beautiful that brought us together as well, to grieve together. Like, that's one aspect, to have people in your life, but it also gives you a perspective when someone close to you dies, that like, life is fragile. You need to appreciate it. And the weird thing is that I started to appreciate life much more after my friend died, and I started to see the flowers that was coming forth in the spring. I was smelling the fresh air, and parts of it was also like it's strange not to ever see your friend again.
Yeah, right.
And it's definitely something that you should talk with other people, like other close friends with, about as well, like how it actually has impacted your life. And like I was like, one of the reasons why I like Eirik so much is that he's brutally honest in his writings. and he's talking about patients who've had their spouse who just died, and suddenly they're feeling more sexually active, like they want to pass on their genes to someone, right? And they feel guilty about it as well. So that's one quite weird thing about grief as well. Like when you lose a partner, for example, suddenly you want to spread your seed, you know, or the places, right?
Like plan B.
Yeah,
Change your plans.
Yeah, okay,
Let's
I gotta get a new one. So
Yeah.
like grief is weird. Like we deal with it differently depending on the circumstances.
Yeah.
But it's something that definitely you shouldn't hold on to yourself only. Like you need to
Let go.
not just let go, but appreciate what has happened, and to talk with, like I've also been talking with Andy about it as well, and you can take it from here.
Yeah, I'd just say that I think there's a natural process. In fact, one of the things we did in that when we talked about grief in the episode is like not to psychologize it and go into like first this and then this, but like I think for me it's more like when you experience a trauma, which is an emotional burst that happens to you, in whether you say no or not. You're on this sort of roller coaster ride of emotions. I think one of the things that surprised me about dealing with loss is the emotional volatility that comes up. And I think everybody has their own way of dealing with tragedies. Some people sort of wall themselves off, other people, scream and wail, and we all have our own processes that we go through, and I think it's just important to allow yourself to go through that in its own time. I don't think there's a way of speeding it up.
Yeah.
And I think the amount of grief you go through is directly proportional to the amount of emotional investment you make in the loved one or the person you're with. And it's one of those things that I think is part of the reason why parents have a hard time dealing with the loss of a child, for example, is they've put so much emotional investment into the well-being of this creature that it's such a tragedy when they go, because in the same way there is no justification. Whereas like as Eirik said, dealing with grief, like he lost his friend, but there's a difference between losing your child and losing your parents.
Yes.
And I think it's directly proportional, as I said, to
Exactly.
the emotional investment that you go through.
Right.
And also too, as I said, as Eirik was alluding to, there is some weird volatility that comes along. Like not only, like when I reflect on my parents passing, for example, which happened decades ago now. Not only was there the magnitude of loss that comes with that, but there's also relief, and there's all these weird sort of emotions that bubble up. Like I remember being troubled by the thought that I found it very difficult to separate my own loss from, like, it was hard for me to grieve the loss of the person. It was more like a narcissistic kind of, now my parents won't get to see what becomes of me. It's like, no, I should be mourning their death, and yet I'm only concerned about my. So there's all these mixed up emotions that come up to the surface, which I don't think there's any way of shortcutting that.
Yeah.
And more importantly, I don't think you want to do that. I want to care about the people in my life, and when they go, I want it to hurt, and I want to treasure that because that tells me that I haven't really learned to articulate this, but it reaffirms my relationship with them, that it was a strong thing. I don't want to just be like, well, that was that, and now here's another cup of coffee. I want to go through that emotional ride with the person, whoever that may be. And so I don't think there is any shortcut to dealing with loss or mourning one.
You put that very well, Andy. Yeah, there's definitely no shortcuts, and the way you could deal with grief is, one way is you could distract yourself with substances, hedonism, but it is really short lasted. And when it just comes around, maybe you might be able to numb your feelings, because I'm not talking about just someone who dies. When you go through a breakup, it's a similar situation, if you like you lost your loved one, like they exist somewhere but not around you, and this is the feeling of the grief.
What's
And
more than that, you've lost you. Like, so for example, like if you've been in a relationship with somebody and you break up for whatever reason, like who you are in the context of the relationship no longer exists.
yeah,
So like your daily patterns, waking up, making coffee for her or him or whatever, those routines that exist that define who you are in the moment go, and so you're sort of unhinged
yeah,
in a weird way, and you have to reinvent yourself in a way, discover a new you in that situation. And so that's one of the reasons why like losing a partner is so tragic, because it, who am I? It suddenly comes up to
yeah,
like, am I, what am I, like the meals I eat, even, you know, like you know, you go from making dinners with your wife or partner to like something like, well, I'm just I'm hungry, here's a do you know what I mean? Everything changes.
yeah, it does.
It's a new you, and so there's a whole sorting out that new identity of what you are, because you're not the 20-year-old kid. You're now 30 years old, and you're not like trying to figure out who you are. Now you're an established, in maybe lecturer or
Yeah.
whatever you are, and a professional, and so it's a whole new discovery of oneself that happens in those moments.
Wow, I never really thought it that way, that you kind of lose. That's what they mean, like, I lost myself.
Imagine if you lose your job tomorrow. You're gonna get thrown into chaos, right? You need to
Yeah.
reinvent
It's
yourself.
gonna suck.
Yeah.
It's going to suck. A part of me will go, because the way I was acting, the way I was coming here and everything. Yeah, and then I had to reinvent myself. That's right. I would like to go on one less emotionally charged question, and that
No, is this emotional or?
But that was Andy. Really, that was one hell of something that you told us. It was great. Like, listening to it was amazing. Eirik, I have a question to you. I saw a podcast of you guys. It was about personal finance. So what does stand out? What's like your personal favorite personal finance tip that you just discovered, or
Just spend everything that you make, just like on rubbish, on every.
you only did once? Yeah.
No, but excuse me. No, but like right now I just come across this American guy called Dave Ramsey, and he's somewhat of a financial guru.
Yeah.
He's been in the game for 30-40 years, and it's something like it's different from the others that I've seen previously. Like, it's not just you just have to change your mindset. You just have, like, you need to be successful. Like, you need to just write it down. Like, no, like he's
Pretty practical.
He's very practical, and he is, as I've mentioned earlier, from the people that I admire, he appears genuine as well.
Have you met him?
No, unfortunately, but
Not
I'm
yet.
gonna send him an email or maybe give a call. I just like check that off. But yeah, like I really admire him as well. And personal finances is something that more or less everyone struggles with. Like, because money is kind of weird. Like, you have something like an object that you can use to buy other stuff.
Exactly.
Like, it's an opportunity to do something.
Yeah.
You can give it to others, and you can spend it on, or you can spend it on yourself. And there's also always a balance to it as well, right? And yes, we always hear different ideas of how to spend money well. And his approach is what he called the 7 baby steps. It's what he's been preaching for like 20, 30 years now. And first off is that you have first just barely enough money to, as an emergency fund, if something happens, if you crack a tooth or something, or your car broke down, you have enough money to just fix that, and so that you don't need to worry about it. Just like a safe account. The second thing is that you need to pay off all your debts. So he's not a fan of going into debt, because like he's also from the people call him a social conservative, but a libertarian, economic libertarian. Well, he's quite libertarian when it comes to personal finances and to business. So yes, paying off the debt so that you're not a slave is kind of what kind of his idea, and his approach is what they call the snowball approach. Is you pay off the debt that you have that's smallest first, and then you move on to the other one, and then to the other one. And while you're doing that, you're just paying the minimum on the others. When it comes to mortgage, it's the only debt that he kind of says that it's okay. It's okay to take a mortgage, but when you are buying a house, then you should be able to pay a lot of money up front, nothing more than 15 years, and you need to be financially stable. So even before you have the idea of buying a house, he says that you need to have the financial, it needs to be stable in your household. So I'm not gonna go through all the different steps, but I find him quite interesting, and he's also talking about investing in mutual funds as well, which has an return interest of about 10%. So over time it will pay off, but it's a slow process.
It is.
And comparing him to another guy called Robert Kiyosaki, who's the exact opposite, is saying that you need to get in depth. So it's difficult to know who's right.
Yeah, I mean, since my core subject is finance, so all of the things that you said, it's absolutely correct. And this is probably one of the only guy that's really genuine. He gives you what to do and what you should do.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a difference. And one of the best tips of personal finance that I know personally is nothing is on sale.
Mm-hmm.
The supplier or the seller wants exactly that amount of money that he has listed there. Like literally nothing is on sale. So if you don't need it, don't buy it. And also, when you want to impress other people, there's that another. It's like this pop media advice. I'm just not gonna go into that. So nothing is on discount. Nothing is on sale.
Jesus, I've done the wrong thing.
Yeah, like there is
Mine's
literally
watch,
yeah.
'cause watches go up in value.
Yeah, if you really have like some decent collections, what it does. So that's the number one rule. And why to adhere to this rule? Because when you see something on discount, you have $50 and now it cost you it's 500 crossed 50. From you, this 50 has left, but the supplier just got exactly what he wanted. You don't have any money right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's the core principle is don't spend. That's the best personal advice. Just don't spend on the things. We really
If I
have
understand you
everything.
correctly, you mean we should tank the economy?
Wait. could be
You are
well,
Indian.
Yeah, I'm Indian, and so there's definitely nothing. There really nothing is on sale. The people fall into this hoax of, okay, this is on sale, so I'm just going to buy it. And there are a lot of things in your household that you barely use, and you just bought it because it was on sale. And this is one of the
cool.
Yeah. I bought it because it was cool. Yeah, yeah.
But there's a reason for Dave Ramsey's success, and I'm also glad to hear that you've heard about him. It's like he's been helping people for 30 years, and it's just so tragic when and it's also very entertaining, of course, hearing about other people's tragedy. But with the talk show, it's like it's just so many stories of how horribly bad people can be with money. It's like, well, I have like 230,000 income, and I just bought a Ferrari, and I got a mortgage on a house that I can't afford, and I have, and now I'm struggling to pay off the other debt that I have from college.
Well, no shit, right?
And I have difficulty with my wife now because now we can't go to vacation because we need to pay this. So what do? Right? So it's like
buy a big watch.
Exactly. So that's the solution. Then you should just get more into depth, and
But at least you have a big watch.
Good point.
There was this story that there was a rich guy and then there was a poor guy, and they were friends for some reason. And so this poor guy tells the rich guy, you see, you have a watch and I have a watch, and they both tell the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And the rich guy says that, yeah, but that tells your time and that tells my time.
Oh.
Yeah, it was pretty sick, you know, there. And so,
love it.
yeah,
It's gonna be
the-
my new man.
Andy's clearly a watch guy.
Yeah,
Right.
got issues.
Guys, it's amazing. Yeah, so just follow Dave Ramsey. Don't spend more than you earn. Don't get into credit card debts.
Terrible advice.
Yeah.
Then they won't have any need for a psychologist.
Get a watch. Get a watch of yourself, and things like that. Also, I would really love to have you guys one more time on this podcast with your niche topics, and maybe we could discover more about clinical psychology and
Watches.
all the and the watches. Definitely watches. We are going to have a show with all the Rolexes and stuff. So definitely, I would like to thank you guys for being here. It was
Thank you very
such a
much.
pleasure. You both are really, really interesting. And guys, I will put the link to their podcast under the video. And please, just like the video, follow them, and we will see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.